Hey there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Classic Gaming Brothers. I'm Seth.
And I'm Zach.
And we are the Classic Gaming Brothers.
That's right. We are the Classic Gaming Brothers.
Oh, another day, another dollar.
Another day, another dollar. Hey,
We haven't said that in a while.
Belated Thanksgiving.
Happy belated Thanksgiving to you as well. Do you know what we haven't said in a while?
Always classy, sometimes classic. Or always classic, sometimes classy.
Always
I always get it
classic, sometimes classy. That's good. As we approach the end of the year, I'm glad that I spent a lot of time in 2025 working on our blog and accomplishing all the things. All the things that we wrote up. I think there's still guests that have asked us to come on.
Yeah, I think we talked to people at PAX that we promised would have on.
We've talked to people before PAX that we promised to have on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, people from Too Many Games.
Let's see. I'm gonna, as we get closer to the year, I just want to, I remember I was going to do a Dragon Sphere thing. I think it's pretty cool. If you guys want me to continue with my Dragon Sphere game, go check out the blog. This is actually a really good blog in regards to the Dragon Sphere. I think I did a really good job at writing this.
Yeah, you should continue.
I should continue it. The last time I wrote it was, 1 year ago. October 30th was 2024 was the last time I did an update, which has been a year. There is like front cover, box cover. This is going to start some of this content here. I think this is, no, wait, there's another, no. Oh yeah, that's the recap, 10/16. Wow, so from 10/16 to 10/30, approximately 14 days, 2 weeks, I created 2 blog entries.
Yeah.
One of them being a gaming blog series of playing video games, the Dragon Sphere game, and I called it Seth's Plays, and I wrote up the blog. It says the bottom of the blog page was a sign up for a newsletter, which we have had no one to sign up for, but that's okay. And there was supposed to be news that you were going to get in your email, according to this that I wrote a year ago. And we were going to do excerpts from this new blog series. According to this, I also said that maybe Zach will do something else outside of everything that he does for the show to support the blog entries. So then I wrote the second blog entry. And then I did a recap on 2024.
Yeah.
And what we've done and what we want to do 2025. What's next? Any pending guests recorded on the show, and to get additional guests. I think we had the least amount of guests on in 2025. Start maintaining the website a bit more. I said that I let the website slip, and I feel like I still let the website slip. I'm not.
I think you updated one thing, maybe.
I did. What did I update?
Oh, you added producer Doug to our.
I did add
staff.
producer Doug from a generated AI image that producer Doug created.
Yes.
And I said that we would continue doing what we always do. Oh, I wanted to start an e-zine. That's right. I wanted to start an e-zine.
What would that have consisted of?
Well, I wanted to start an email newsletter, which was a delineation.
Yes, I remember that.
Because I said that we wanted to go backwards in time with writing, so we would do a newsletter, then an e-zine, and then we would send out physical mail to people.
Yes,
If anyone sends me their physical mailing address, I will, in turn, eventually send some mail to you. We received Mike Cases, who was on our show many times, and we did send him stuff. So
we did, yeah.
We did. We sent him the boot crate.
No, we never sent him a boot crate. We just sent him the Classic Gaming Brothers crate.
We were going to send him the boot crate.
We were going to send a boot crate, which was going to be like a loot crate, but with bootleg toys.
We should send him a boot crate still.
We could still send him a boot crate, yeah. Next time I go to the flea market, I'll buy some bootleg toys.
All right. Then we'll send
I bought a bootleg Spider-Man figure I meant to send to him, and I have no idea where it is.
All right, you find the boot crate, and we'll send him a boot crate. I'll tell him, I'll message him and say, we're going to send you a bootleg toy. So anyway, Zach.
Yes, Seth.
What have you been recently been playing?
Well, Seth, a few weeks ago, I went to Rhode Island Comic Con. I had wanted to get some more audio than I actually did get, but it was mostly just a convention where we wandered around and we bought some stuff, comic books, some movies, things like that. One of the booths we stopped at, though, was a booth that primarily sold toys, specifically toys from the last 20 or 30 years or so. And they had a bunch of toys from the movie Independence Day. And the reason why this is a recently played is because these toys came with floppy disks. Now, I like Independence Day. I think it's a good movie, but I don't really see myself having the need to own an Independence Day action figure. As you know, I like the movie. It's just not like I like having action figures for things that I have a reason to have an action figure for. But if the mission discs really intrigued me that were in these packages, these floppy disks. And I did a quick Google search and I found out that all of these discs, all 11 of them, were in ExoWin. And I was excited to find that out for two reasons. One, it turns out they were lost media as of like 5 years ago. And then they were all discovered and saved. But more importantly, I didn't have to buy a $15 action figure, rip it open, throw away everything but the floppy disk, and play a game that was kind of mediocre. I could play it in ExoWin. And I played a few of these games, I guess you can call them. There were 11 total discs developed by Trendmasters and Macromedia, and I specifically played Alien Supreme Commander and Captain Steve Hiller. Alien Supreme Commander was kind of confusing. It felt like a menu, and there were some options that I had to choose, and at some point the game crashed. Didn't know what I was doing. I don't think I did it right. However, Captain Steve Hiller is a little different. You start out in the alien spaceship from Independence Day that you are hotwiring to get to run, and if you hotwire it wrong, then it blows up. But if you hotwire it right, you get a fairly simple shooter game. I think they're neat. I definitely think they were probably really cool for the time, and I feel like if I was into Independence Day more and I bought these toys, or you had bought these toys, we would have owned a couple of these mission discs, and I could see myself having played them as a kid. However, playing them now in 2025 as an adult, I don't think they're really worth time or effort, but I'm glad they exist, and I'm glad they are preserved, because I would be sad if they were lost media. They're definitely neat, and I assume they were neat for the time, though they also kind of feel like something you'd find in a cereal box, though not as good as Chex Quest. You know what they needed to do was put in a mod of Doom into a action figure pack for Independence Day. But yeah, that's what I recently played was these, they're called the ID4 mission discs. They were 11 of them. I played a couple of the games and they sure were something.
That's fun.
I think so, yeah. I guess you could say that. What about you? What have you been recently playing?
Recently I've been playing Warhammer 40,000 Rogue Trader, which was developed and published by Alcat Games, released back in December 7th of 2023. Now here's a story about me. Sometimes I get really into Warhammer. I don't own any of the miniatures. I don't know if I'll ever own the miniatures, but sometimes I just get really consumed with it and I think about it all the time. I think about it a lot. And like there's a period of time sometimes where I'm just like, all I can think about is Warhammer. The lore, the minis, all my YouTube algorithm like just goes on like a bender, and like all it is Warhammer lore like videos that are getting served to me. All I can like, I'm just, whenever I would listen to YouTube content, I would just be listening to Warhammer instead of my usual stuff. Like I know when the warp has come in and consumed me. And I was getting that. Like there was actually, I was playing Outer Worlds 2, and when I was playing Outer Worlds 2, I was just like, man, I really wish I could be playing Warhammer. I don't know why it did that and why it happens. It just happens occasionally. It'll pass eventually. Like the urge of all the Warhammer desires will pass. But because I'm currently in that phase, I was like, I need to play something that's Warhammer related. And I was like, I really didn't give Rogue Trader a good enough shake. Let's go back and play through Rogue Trader. I am kind of mad with myself because when I restarted the Rogue Trader, I did pick a class that people say it's like a crappy class, but I'm having an okay time with it. And by that I mean it's really good. So I restarted the Rogue Trader. I'm playing what's known as a sanctioned psyker, which is a origin, and then I'm the operative class, which is the class that's not as super like min-maxy as it could be, and then my character is he's an iconoclast. So there's 3 different paths you can go down. There's the dogmatic path, which is all about the emperor and being idealist. Then there is the heretic path, which is all about not liking the emperor and not being like following the emperor's litany. And then there's an iconoclast. It's kind of just like, it's fine. Like, I care more about the people kind of thing. Like, I care more about people versus anything else. This character is an iconoclast. He follows all the etiquette. He minds his P's and Q's. But ultimately, because he's a sanctioned psyker, he's essentially a space wizard. And in Rogue Trader, you play as a rogue trader who essentially is a space king. So he's a space wizard in a space kingdom. I built this character more combat focused versus my other character I was playing, a rogue trader, because Alcat games actually have really tough combats. And if you don't maximize or optimize your character for combat, you can get frustrated. And I actually got frustrated my last time playing through, which is one of the reasons why I quit. But now, like, every combat I go into, I've like optimized all the characters and then just like steamroll everything, which is great. So I'm like really enjoying the story. I'm really enjoying the combat along with the story, and the story is just really good. I have been using some build guides for the companion characters just because there's so many options that it's kind of overwhelming, but the guides kind of keep things like, hey, you want to play this type of character, build this way, because there's just like abilities, talents, skills, and there's just like hundreds of options for everything. So I just let number crunchers figure it out, and then I just pick the best build. So I did auto-generate the names for my characters, and so the character's name, the Psyker's name, is Ignatius, and I get a ship, right? So I was auto-generating the names of the ship, and the name Eye of Providence showed up, and so I said, "Wow, I was like, that's it." So he is the rogue trader Ignatius, and his ship is the Eye of Providence. It's a giant, and it's a Warhammer ship. So I'm not sure if you're familiar, even Zach, if you're familiar, but Warhammer ships are essentially floating cities. So like you can have things happen on your ship that you don't even realize. They'll be like, there's a cult on your ship, and you're like, oh, there is. And they'll be like, yeah, there's like this weird death cult that lives on your ship, and they kill the enemies of the emperor. And you're like, oh, okay. And they're like, they want to meet you, and you're like, all right, where are they? And then they just come out and they just hang out with you. Yeah. Or there could be like weird aliens or weird things in the underdecks of the ship, because the Warhammer world is weird and confusing. But this isn't a Warhammer podcast, and there's plenty of Warhammer podcasts out there to listen to. But another reason why I started playing through this game is because Alcat's working on another game set in the Warhammer 40k universe that is also going to be a CRPG, just like Rogue Trader is. And in the game that they're working on, you play as an Inquisitor. And apparently they're making it so open-ended that you could just call anyone a heretic and kill them. So you could land on a planet. If someone gives you a hard time, you could be like, well, you sound like a heretic to me. But yeah, so that's what I've been playing, Rogue Trader. I am getting pretty decently far in it. But I think I'm finally ending chapter 1, and there's 4 chapters, and I think collectively I've played about 30 hours between my 2 playthroughs, and I'm not out of chapter 1. So I think the game's about 150 hours, maybe 180 with the 2 DLCs, which I own both of those. In the event that you are interested in playing, if you too have the Warhammer 40k bug and you get into Rogue Trader and you get overwhelmed with the choices, use the Google, find the guides. There's a companion guide by like a guy by the name of like Revan316 or something like that. Just Google those and you'll have companion guides to build your character out and the characters out, and he has regular guides for you to build your own character out, and you just follow and you just pick the things he tells you to pick when you level up, because there's like 50 levels in the game, so like there's plenty of things to buy.
That sounds great, Seth. I think Warhammer's an interesting series. I find myself being interested by it, but very scared of it. So I like
it is grim dark,
not like that type of scare, just like I find it daunting. Like I'll see something Warhammer related and I'm like, wow, I want to learn more about that, and then I try to learn more about it and I'm like, this is too much information for my brain today.
Yeah, so there's a couple of tricks with Warhammer and learning things about it, and I'm not any Warhammer aficionado. I'm just somebody who's interested in Warhammer and get really deep into the lore sometimes. I think part of it is what faction you want to learn about. Be like, I'm really interested in all the different chapters of Space Marines, and just read about the different chapters of Space Marines, right? And then, or you're like, I'm really interested in all the different factions of the Imperium, like the Imperial Guard or the Sisters of Battle or the AdMech stuff, and just read those stuff. And then choose like a good medium of like how you want to kind of consume it. Obviously, like miniatures are definitely decidedly, like the actual game of Warhammer is decidedly a pretty large commitment, but like there's various different video games throughout the entire series, both in 40k and also in like, I think we played some Vermintide, which is set in the like the traditional, like the Warhammer Dark Ages type of situation. Yep. So there's Vermintide, there's Bolt Gunner, there's Space Marine, there's Dawn of War, and it sounds like Dawn of War is making a comeback, which is great. There's Rogue Trader, so it's like you want the story and the lore and like the and playing out some of that stuff, play Rogue Trader. If you want to just kind of be a Space Marine and like charge and kill things, go play Space Marines or Dawn of War. I think that's, if you want to play the board game without an investment, then like Dawn of War is your answer. And then there's of course novels and comics and all sorts of stuff that you can kind of get into. I say like just start with a faction that you're interested in and then like learn about that faction. And then there's books about that faction that you could read if you want to read about them. There's games you could play them.
Well, today we're gonna get into our episode. It's not related to Warhammer, but it's something I think producer Doug has been wanting us to do for a while. He's been telling us over and over again, we got to do this game. I can't remember what it was called. I knew it was about the sun. So I think producer Doug, I think we got the right game this time. We're talking about Boktai, the game you've begged for, the GBA game that has a solar sensor inside of it, so it uses the sun. I assume that's the game he wanted us to talk about, and I assume there's not another game that has sun in its title that we could be possibly confusing it for. Now, Boktai is an interesting game. It is really kind of a standard action role-playing game. It has this unique feature, though, of having a light sensor as a gameplay mechanic. The game was developed by Konami, specifically designed by Hideo Kojima, as in Hideo Kojima, the creator of Metal Gear Solid Hideo Kojima. Now, I looked back at our previous Metal Gear Solid episodes. We did one with Super Games Bros, and we did one with Nathan not too long ago. In both episodes, we never really talked about Kojima as a person. So I thought this would probably be a good opportunity to go a little bit into history of Kojima and his game development and what got him into designing Boktai. Now, Hideo Kojima was born in Tokyo in 1963, but grew up with his family in the city of Osaka. From an early age, he became enamored with pop culture. He would collect figurines and develop a deep love of cinema, thanks to a nightly movie night that his parents would hold. Apparently, his parents had a rule where the children, Kojima and his other siblings, were not allowed to go to bed until the movie was over. And they showed all types of films, horror movies, Westerns, European and American films, pretty much anything. It was basically the parents were like, I want to watch this movie. Also, kids, you're invited. That was just kind of the way he was brought up.
Kojima would begin to develop a fascination with filmmaking and would make movies with a friend using the friend's Super 8 camera. Reportedly, they would charge other kids 50 yen to see the final films, which is equivalent to probably under $1 maybe, or...
Yeah, I know like 100 yen, I think, is just under $1.
Well, this is also depending on the year.
It's
right?
also 1980s money, yeah.
50 yen today is about 32 cents. It'd be like maybe a nickel or a dime at the time. Kojima once told his family that he needed money to go to an island for a 4-day film shoot, but ended up just swimming and enjoying the weather and filming the entire movie on the last day. Wait.
So he would charge his friends 50 yen
up front
to see films. Up front to see his films.
And then he would go off to say he's going to...
Separately, he once told his family that he needed money to go to an island. So they gave him money.
Oh, and
he
then
went to the island and he just slacked off.
He just relaxed. Well, he filmed it in the last day. He didn't say when he was going to film it. He just said he needed to film it. Kojima's father would pass away when Kojima was 13, which financially impacted the family. Kojima would then go on to study economics and would go join the video game industry. He initially wanted to become a filmmaker, as you expect from someone who loves movies, but he also saw the burgeoning world of video games as being something worth exploring and something where there was a lot of capability of making money in it. And, with his father passing away, he felt like he needed the financial stability. When he started working in game design, he didn't have a lot of support from his peers, and he often lied about his job. In an article about him from The Guardian, apparently he was once introduced at a wedding by the groom, who said that he was a very talented and otherwise likable person, but I'm sorry to say, for some unknown reason, he decided to join a video game company. That company was Konami, where Kojima worked in the home computer division. He worked for Konami because it was the only company that he could find on the Japanese stock exchange. Early on, he would work on games like Penguin Adventure and Antarctic Adventure. In 1987, he would take over the development of Metal Gear, which was already being worked on. Using his love of films like The Great Escape, Kojima would go on to change the game from an action game to a stealth game, and the rest is history.
Kojima had always wanted to work with Nintendo starting from the very beginning of his time working in video games. For the most part, he really thought Nintendo was the company to work for, and some of his games would be brought to Nintendo systems, but never really directly with his involvement. One of the first games he would develop for a Nintendo console would be Metal Gear Ghost Babel for the GBC, but the first original title he would develop was Boktai. The name Boktai came from Bokur no Tayo, translating to our son. When asked by the publication Nintendo Dream why he chose the name, he responded, quote unquote, because I was a child of the 1960s, and later elaborated that his generation had a lot of sun imagery, such as the Tower of Sun sculpture by Toru Akamoto for Expo 70. In the same interview, he also mentioned that he was well aware of another game coming out around the same time called Golden Sun, that he jokingly said beat him to the punch, but he was still insistent on keeping Sun in their name. So even though Golden Sun was coming out, he said, I like the sun. I'm keeping the sun, and he kept the sun. The idea for Boktai came from an older idea that Kojima had that never saw fruition. He had this idea where a game's CD would actually break if the player died. He always wanted to make a game where you put the CD in the player, started it out, and then if your character died, you could never play the game again, and that CD was broken. But he understood that no one would make this game. However, he always wanted to do something where the game itself was influenced directly by the medium, and really couldn't ever tackle this because he was often too focused on the Metal Gear titles, so he couldn't really shift gears to a radically new idea.
When the Game Boy Advance had come out, Kojima saw an opportunity for returning to his idea. Not only was the system pretty powerful, but it also would be one that could be played outdoors. He also knew that Konami was familiar with designing medical devices that used sensors, so he felt he could easily translate to putting a sensor inside a GBA cartridge. His original plan for the game was a stealth game, similar to Metal Gear, but this would change as the game was developed. Soon the idea was to make the game more target towards a younger audience, and to be about vampires. He pitched the idea to Shigeru Miyamoto and the rest of the Nintendo team. According to the Nintendo Dream interview, he was mostly met with a mix of skepticism and indifference, saying that they basically told him, be our guest. There were some concerns about the cost of further production of the cartridges, but Miyamoto would provide some of his own ideas, which helped kick the game from being just an idea to a real project. The game would have a team of around 15 people working on it, and Boktai would be released on July 17th, 2003 in Japan, and be brought to North America in September of that same year under the name Boktai, the Sun is in Your Hand.
It's Boktai, by the way.
Boktai. Did I say that?
You said Bokai.
What's the difference?
Boktai? Bokai. Do you not hear the K? You're saying Boktai. Tai with a T.
Tai, yeah.
You're saying Bokai with a K.
Bokai. Oh, I'm just dropping the T.
You're dropping the T.
Doesn't need to be there.
Now, the game takes place in the Age of Darkness, a pre-apocalyptic time where the world is nearing its end, but it's not quite there yet, which I like that for a game. Too many games, I think, take place in a post-apocalyptic time. We need more games set in a pre-apocalyptic time where everyone's just very depressed.
Oh, like today.
It's nearing its end, but it's just not quite there yet. In the Age of Darkness, dark matter has been misused by people of the world, causing people to die quickly and become corrupted. Some survive this dark matter corruption and become immortals, who have an aversion to light, and also feast upon the living. The story primarily is set in a city called Iskarkan, where the city is overrun with these immortals. A mysterious boy comes to the city, and his name is Django, which is in fact a reference to Sergio Corbucci film of the same name, released in 1966, which inspired the Quentin Tarantino film Django Unchained. Django appears in the city and is equipped with the Gun del Sol, a legendary weapon that can destroy vampires. Boktai uses a solar sensor to drive its gameplay. The game's solar weapons must be charged by solar exposure, requiring you to go outside during the day, and if you can't access sunlight, you must avoid enemies or find a solar station in the game itself. When you start the game, you must put the time and the time zone that you live in into the game, which will estimate the sun's rise and setting time and its position. Different elements of the game change when you're in the sunlight versus not in the sunlight. Vampires become more aggressive or even impossible to stop without the assistance of your solar weapons, for example. This makes the game actually keep a stealth kind of gameplay, something that Kojima was originally toying with. So primarily your goal is to avoid being attacked by these vampires if you don't have the ability to fight. Once you have the ability to fight, you can go blast in vampires with sun, but your best option is often to run or hide. The game plays from an isometric perspective. It has a very anime-esque aesthetic, and it stands out very distinctly from other Hideo Kojima titles. He does have a tendency toward realism, Metal Gear has its kind of more realistic setting. Some of his other games like Police Knots and Snatcher are also, they have more of an anime aesthetic, but are still kind of grounded, while this does feel a bit more like, almost like a Final Fantasy type of anime. Everyone has like a little spikier hair and stuff like that, a little less grounded in reality. Seth, how did Boktai do?
Boktai had a decent reception on release. Famitsu in Japan would give it a 36 out of 40. EGM would give it an 8.5 out of 10, which just reminds me that we can do another old EGM episode. And GamePro would give the game 5 out of 5 stars. 2 less positive reviews came from GameSpy, who gave it the game 3 out of 5 stars, and XPlay, who also rated it a 3 out of 5 stars. In terms of legacy, Boktai had 2 direct sequels, Boktai 2 Solar Boy Django, and Boktai 3 Sabata Counterattack. Boktai 2 would be released in the United States and see more mixed reviews, and Boktai 3 was only released in Japan because they didn't think they would get the ROI by bringing it to these states. A 4th title, Lunar Nights, would go on to be released for the Nintendo DS. One problem with the DS is that the cartridges wouldn't be able to be modified to have a solar sensor. But if you owned an original Boktai cartridge, you could use it to access solar functionality. Otherwise, the game plays more like a standard action role-playing game. So you needed to have an original Boktai cartridge, owned a copy of Lunar Nights, own it on the DS, and plug them both in at the same time.
Yeah, if you wanted to specifically play using the gameplay functionality of the original Boktai. If you didn't have a copy of Boktai, you could still play Lunar Nights. It just wouldn't have solar functionality.
So that's fair.
I think Boktai is an interesting game. I feel like a lot of games that used kind of the Game Boy cartridge with a bit more of like a focus on the cartridge, where things like there was a Wario game where you could like add an accelerometer inside of it. So depending on how you held the cartridge, it would do different things on the game. I think there was also a Kirby game that did that. So there was definitely games that utilized the cartridge for the Game Boy and the Game Boy Advance in unique ways, though I think the way Boktai did it was pretty cool in the fact that it was tied to the sun. You know, you needed to be outside in order to play the game, which does make the game hard to play emulated because you don't have a solar sensor on your emulated system, though there are ROM hacks and such to get the game to work without the solar sensor capabilities.
Right.
And I hope, Producer Doug, I hope we did Boktai justice. I know you've been wanting us to talk about some sun game, and I hope this is the one. I hope you liked this. I'm checking my notes, Seth.
Yeah.
He wrote Golden Sun. He didn't write Boktai.
Oh, that's dramatically different. And also, I'm
It
surprised you got them confused.
I did. I don't know how, but sorry, Producer Doug. We'll get it next time. Well, we don't have enough time to cover 2 games in one episode, so let's get into our Retro Rewind, where we will talk about more games. Seth had me play Hard Drivin', developed by Atari Games for the arcade, but it was ported to the Sega Genesis by Sterling Silver Software and published by Tengen. Seth had me play the Sega Genesis version. Hard Drivin' is a first-person car racing game, and it's pretty impressive. The Sega game uses 3D graphics similar to the arcade version. In fact, they are like polygonal 3D graphics, which are very cool to see on a Sega Genesis.
Right.
However, they are very cool, but also a little slow and a little sloppy.
But it's got blast processing.
Oh, that blast processing is being put to the limit. It isn't awful, but I think there are definitely better racing games on the Sega Genesis. For example, Cruisin', which is probably the best racing game on the Sega Genesis. I love the Cruisin' games. Even RC Pro-Am. I love that game too. That game's a great racing game. I think it is cool to see what they could have done with the Sega Genesis in terms of its hardware. However, Hard Drivin', probably stick to the arcade if you want to play it. Next week, Seth, I want you to play a Sega Genesis game. I want you to play Theme Park for the Sega Genesis.
Thanks, Zach. Zach had me play Taz in Escape from Mars, developed by Head Games and published by Sega in 1994. You play as Taz from Looney Tunes, and in the game you can spin around and destroy things, and you're trying to escape because you've been kidnapped by Marvin the Martian and put in a zoo. The game's a little odd in regards to the plot. At some point in time, you escape from Mars, as in the title, but then you go back to Mars to beat up Marvin the Martian. So, I just think that's, you escape from Mars relatively early on, and then you go back. The game is a mascot platformer, and pretty nostalgic for us because we either owned it or rented it a pile of times.
Oh, we owned it.
Did we own a copy?
We definitely rented it for a bit, but
we owned a copy eventually. For me, it lives in the same world that Desert Demolition lives in, which is the game where you play as Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner. They're good games. They stay kind of safe in their lane. They don't really push the boundary on anything. It's a mascot platformer. If you like Looney Tunes, you'll probably have a decent time playing Taz and playing Desert Demolition, but like you'll like playing them because they're Looney Tunes and nostalgic. You won't necessarily like playing them because they're any good games.
Yeah.
They're not bad games. They're just like a mid-tier platformer. But it holds up because it's a nostalgic mid-tier platformer. So for people who have the nostalgia, it makes it 10 times better. Next week, Zach, you could play E.T. No More Mr. Nice Alien for MS-DOS.
Well, Seth, I will definitely do that. And I want to thank everyone for joining us for today's episode. Sorry, Producer Doug, we got this one wrong, but maybe next time. I hope everyone enjoyed listening to us talk about Boktai, though. If you have any memories of playing Boktai, you can email us at classicgamingbrothers@gmail.com. Be sure to visit our website, www.classicgamingbrothers.com. Be sure to like and subscribe us on YouTube, and also be sure to check us out on social media wherever we're found. Classic Gaming Brothers or CG Brothers Pod. Seth, am I forgetting anything?
Don't play games like my brother.
And don't play games like my brother.
I've been Seth.
And I've been Zach.
And we've been the Classic Gaming Brothers.
That's right.
That's right.